We're going to start the AC compressor replacement by removing the machine's hoses from the service ports on the vehicle. I've already recovered the refrigerant. Using a 14mm wrench, we're going to loosen the tensioner and remove the drive belt from all the pulleys. After removing the belt, we're going to work on removing the wiring harness from the alternator and getting it off of the top of the AC compressor. There is one connector on the alternator, a 12mm nut holding the battery cable, one connector on the AC compressor, and two clips that you need to remove to get the harness off. With the harness out of the way, we can now remove the drive belt cover bracket from over the AC compressor and alternator. There's a 12mm bolt that holds the bracket to the alternator, and also a 10mm bolt that holds it to the AC compressor. There are two bolts that hold a stiffening bracket from the alternator to the AC compressor. As you can see, I took out one bolt because I took the other bolt out a step earlier. We will now remove the two 10mm bolts that hold the high side and low side AC hoses to the AC compressor. At this time, we're going to start unbolting the AC compressor from the engine. There are two 12mm bolts on the bottom side of the compressor, one on the left side, and one behind it. In total, there are four bolts that secure the AC compressor to the engine. The bolt at the rear of the compressor and one of the bolts on the front of the compressor hold a bracket that is used when pulling the engine from the top. When installing a new compressor, make sure to remember to reinstall the bracket. Once all the compressor mounting bolts have been removed, we can lift it off from the engine. In reverse order, we're going to install the new compressor and we're going to start all the bolts by hand. We will then proceed to tightening down the bolts. I would recommend that when you are tightening the bolts, you tighten the rear one first. As you can see here, I tightened the front one and it moved the engine hoist bracket a little bit. You will see me try to bend it back, unsuccessfully. I had to loosen the front bolt and tighten the rear bolt to keep the bracket from moving. I will now remove the protective plugs that come on the fittings on the compressor. I am now removing the old O-rings from the AC pipes. I will be installing new O-rings and lubricating them with PAG oil. After lubricating the O-rings with PAG oil, I will now insert the lines onto the compressor and start the two 10mm bolts. Next, I will reinstall the harness, plug in the alternator, plug in the AC compressor, and install the 12mm nut onto the alternator battery cable. I am now reinstalling the alternator and AC compressor bracket. Next, I'm installing the drive belt cover bracket. I am now reinstalling the drive belt. I have a diagram to show me how it goes back on, but in your case, if you do not have one, you can take a picture of it beforehand so you can reference it when reinstalling. After I have the belt and all the pulleys, I double check that all the pulley grooves are engaged into the belt and that none of them are slipping off or off kilter. Next, I connect the AC machine and perform a vacuum for about 20 minutes to get all the moisture out of the system that may have accumulated with the lines off. While the vacuum is going, I reconnect the negative battery terminal and wrap up the rest of the job. After the vacuum is completed, I double check the refrigerant capacity of the vehicle, type it into the machine, and perform a system charge. After the charge is completed, I follow the prompts on the machine to equalize the hoses. I start the engine, let the AC compressor kick on, and then disconnect the low side hose. As you can see in the video, the battery voltage of the vehicle has depreciated to the point where it will not start the vehicle. This is because the vehicle had to wait outside for a couple of days so that we could get the parts in for the repair. The battery has since failed the test. This concludes our procedure of removing and replacing an AC compressor on a 2013 Subaru Impreza. A lot of Subaru models will be similar to this. Always consult the service manual for the proper procedure to do this, and make sure that you have all the tools you need to do this job before you start. Always recover refrigerant into a appropriate container such as an AC machine and never vent it into the atmosphere. Thank you for watching.